model that we use, just the main thing is that at the basis of this approach, we expect companies to have policies and procedures in place to deal with situations. We expect them to have ownership within the management. It should be aligned to their strategy, to have the possibility to react and to be accountable. So if something does go wrong, that they then also have somebody who will act upon it and somebody who's willing to take the blame. Then comes the more implementation bit, so looking at who's operationally responsible for executing this. So we've set up a risk control system. Now, where does this sit? Who monitors it? What is going on? And who executes this on a day-to-day basis? And then finally, and probably even most importantly, comes the last step. I said before, when talking about crises, that it happens to everyone. The most important thing, we all make mistakes as well, and companies do so too. But we can only learn if we make those mistakes. And that, therefore, to me, is the crucial part here. So if we can learn from what may not have been so good, then basically you start again. So to give an example, you may have an oil company like BP, who had a severe incident in the Mexican Gulf only a few years ago. They went back and started thinking about, well, how can we set up our business in such a way that we can prevent this from happening in the future, or at least have early warning systems. So that's the governance area. Then they set that up. They have certain teams set up, certain structures to monitor what is going on. And then finally, obviously, they've learned their lessons from what went wrong in the Gulf of Mexico case, and that then spurred new activity as to, okay, we need to redefine our policies, etc. So it's a logical circle, if you wish. The other thing, maybe just to mention, the media and stakeholder analysis, we often, particularly when we're abroad, I said before, we're based in Switzerland, the majority of our staff is based in Switzerland. So a question we often get asked, well, I don't speak Thai, obviously, otherwise I would be speaking to you in Thai now. How can you then know what's going on in Thailand? Are you sure that you have all the information available? So for that, we use systems and other parties who do have access to that information. So just to make sure that we can also capture it. But what we try to do is try to be fair. So we force everybody to submit the answers to the questionnaire in English. We also review the news in English, which includes translated news stories. So there may be something in a local newspaper here in Thailand, which we then still get to see in a translated version. And that's how we do this. We also do this on an ongoing basis. It's not that I feel, oh, today it's Wednesday, let me have a look at what's going wrong in the world. No, this happens on an ongoing basis, and flags are issued, are flagged on a very regular basis. I want to give one example, and again, I won't take very long, because I was told, I mentioned this morning, and then I was told that actually in Thailand, corporate citizenship and philanthropy is something that many companies already do. Well, that's great. Then we want to know more about it, and I think my colleagues down here will say exactly the same thing. Within the developed markets, I'm often spending hours explaining this and why this is important. So I won't go into that, but I think, again, the main thing that I'm trying to say here is that it's important for companies to take this seriously, to not just do ad hoc things, but really have a strategy behind it. To give a specific example, until last year, we asked in the questionnaire, does your company have a corporate citizenship and philanthropy scheme? And the answer was yes or no. So many companies started answering yes that we realized that we needed to change the question. So this year we're looking much more into, well, is it aligned with your strategy? Are you actually setting clear priorities? And foremost, are you measuring the impact of those activities? There is a good example. So we, for this specific criterion, we use a framework defined by the London Benchmarking Group. Many of you may know that also in the UK, the whole community effort is and charity work is a very big thing. So it's not a surprise that this was developed in that market. But we feel that's also usable outside of the UK. And on the website of the London Benchmarking Group, there's a good example, or there's a number of good examples. One of those is by Investec, which I wanted to mention, not because I'm a great Investec fan, but also because they operate, like yourselves, in emerging markets. So they have a South African listing. And what they've done is that they cooperated with a local charity. That charity was reaching out to students from less favorable backgrounds. And they were contributing in cash, but also allowing about 70 employees to actively go out and participate in this program. The positive thing about it is that not only did the students do better, so after being in touch with this charity, their scores went up, they were able to secure places at good universities, which was what they set out to do. But also the staff at Investec were very positive. About 90% of the people who participated said they would talk positively about their company and they would recommend it to others. So what you get in that process is not only that you do something good for your local society, but also something for your employees, which may then again have a positive effect on your turnover rates. So you may tie your staff in to you even more. And again, thinking about the trends that I showed a few slides ago in getting more scarcity of staff or of available people, that is a very positive thing to do. I wanted to very briefly touch upon reporting, because I think that is very important. I said it before, I wasn't aware that there was already so much going on in terms of philanthropy within Thailand. So a lot of that is also due, we need to be able to see it one way or another. So you may not think it's so necessary, but for us, in order to be able to assess whether you're good or not, we do need it. And I would again say that if that is the case, that so many Thai companies are doing this, that would be great. So then I definitely like to see those companies also in our index. Just talking from my own experience, over time, reporting has changed significantly. When I was still in university, I was assisting my professor who was writing a book. And he tasked me to find out how many women there were on boards of American big companies, so in the S&P 500. It was incredibly difficult finding that information, and this is we're talking about 20 years ago. I struggled and struggled and struggled. I tried to contact companies, write to them. I had to dig through numerous annual reports, and it was hard to find that information. These days, diversity in boards is something that is quite well known. Most companies, most people are able to find and access that information. So as I said, from personal experience, I think we've made a lot of progress. However, there is still a lot of information missing. And that is why we feel that though the reporting has changed, it still needs to change a bit more. And it's particularly important, again, thinking at it from the stakeholder perspective, that those people want to know, they want to understand. And you may already be doing things, but if they don't know about it, it may be to your disadvantage. We also find, and I talked about this before when I showed you the very wordy slides with the different dimensions and the criteria, it is possible to attach a materiality to these criteria. So we're asking these for a reason. That's why we want to see these responses. And the more of this that can be available in the public domain, the better for all parties, not just for us. We feel that this increased reporting is really good, but to us, we feel that we also get even more out of the contact that we have with the companies directly. Because obviously, I showed it before, some of the things we asked are about company strategy, because we feel, again, that in terms of materiality, there is a lot to be learned. This you wouldn't obviously find in public reporting. So that's why we like both. We like to see more in the public domain, but we also much appreciate having that direct exchange with the companies. So in conclusion, on the reporting bit, it is important that companies report on that, what investors want to see. And I've had numerous conversations with companies who said, well, you know, we spend so much time, so many days, so many man-hours filling out your questionnaire, and at none of our investor meetings has anybody ever asked a question. So we feel that it's a waste of time. And we then spend a lot of time trying to explain to them that it's not wasted time. But obviously it helps. And I think we're getting onto something. There is a big gap between where the investors are on average and where the companies are on average. And there's exceptions either way for both groups. But there is a big gap. And we feel that integrated reporting is the beginning, because obviously the easier it can be for companies, and I'm a total fan of that, the easier it is also for us as investors to look at that information. I was mentioning this before. On average, this is just to, I'm not sure whether today is there or whether we're maybe a centimeter to the right now, but just to give an idea, the gap between where the corporates are and where the companies are is very big. And there are exceptions either way. There are some really leading investors who are way beyond, and there's also some lagging companies that haven't really picked up on sustainability. But what we are trying to do is trying to facilitate that these come closer. And I think there are some other people here today that have a similar opinion, that this is what needs to happen to move the field forward. Now let me very briefly touch upon the DJSI. Most of you may already be aware of it. I've heard it, I said before, I don't speak Thai, but I've heard the word DJSI a few times, so I'm sure you're familiar with it. We started doing this index, or the family of indices, in 1999. So we've got 10 plus years experience in doing this. And over time, we've really seen significant change. I said it before, in the past, we may have had more generic questions, fewer industry-specific ones. But over time, the industry-specific questions have increased. Likewise, the weights, remember the pie charts I showed you before, they would be divided in the 3 dimensions, so economic, environmental, and social, about equally in the very beginning. Well, these days, they're very different from, I don't think there's any of the 58 sectors that have exactly the same weights and split. I also already talked to you that we take a best-in-class approach, so that we do look at it from the positive example. And it is the most recognized sustainability index out there. To, again, another wordy slide, but it's more to show you that what we do is really a funneling approach. We start with a starting universe for the DJSI world, which is at the top. We take the 2,500 largest companies worldwide, including Thai companies. And then we select the top 10% of companies in each and every sector, and then make sure that their market cap is representative. So have we really, for example, if you select only very small companies, you may have selected the right number of companies, but it may not be representative for the sector. So that's the step in between. And in the end, then in the green arrows, you see it results in a specific index. This is the existing family, and the latest addition is at the bottom, the Emerging Markets Index, which was launched just a few months ago. Where are we going? Where are we heading for? Well, I talked about you and PRI and being a signatory first. There are many amongst you who are already signatories or who may be considering it. But even after signing up, there are next steps, because obviously once you've committed to doing this, then you also need to start implementing this. And this is where we notice that there is still quite a lot of uncertainty amongst investors how to really actually do this. Which strategy does fit me? How does it match my investment objectives and beliefs? Then active ownership. I think this is like engagement. It's a very powerful tool, and many people tend to really use this more and more. So if you look at the news in sustainability land, it is a lot about engagement, about shareholder voting, etc. So if you have stocks, also exercise those rights. And then also think about different asset classes. So obviously we come at it from an equity background, but I told you that we're owned by Robeco, and they are basically using the same data that we use for the indices, and they apply that to fixed income portfolios, for example, as a screen. So it is possible to apply this to different asset classes. The other example is private equity, for example. And then giving you an example, because I wanted to use a few examples to just make you aware that, one, you don't need to go from zero sustainability to 100% overnight. You could also do this in a step-by-step approach and see what works for you. But what do pension funds do? And I'm sorry, I didn't understand the full content of the speech that was made before me, but just to give an idea, there are various products available with different risk profiles, with different investment strategies, which can give you exposure to the DJSI. How does it work in practice? Well, I've listed 3 examples, and I think they're all quite different, but good to just make you aware. In Australia, for example, there were some people, just like you and I, who asked their pension fund to make a sustainable version available because they found that important. That's what they wanted. In Spain, it was a company's management that decided that they, because sustainability was part of their business practice, they should also have a sustainable version of their corporate pension plan. So that is another example. And finally, in Italy, it was the institutional investors, so the big pension funds, who were telling their asset managers, I really want to have this mandate managed against a sustainability index. So these are various different ways, and I'm sure there's different dynamics and different ways in the different markets, but these are just some examples. This is an example of existing products, so there are already ETFs available. They may not be available for sale here in Thailand, but just to show that even in the world of ETFs, there are possibilities to get exposure. This is a list of our licensees. We don't have any licensees in Thailand at the moment, but if anybody's keen, come and speak to me later. And if you have any questions, then don't hesitate to ask now or contact us later. We'd be happy to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the amazing speech. And thank you for putting together the sustainability investment things like that. And we could understand what it's actually like. And if you have the problems with the slides, the smaller ones, you can go to the website worldwideweb.csri.or.th in order to download. I think it's online now, so maybe later, but soon. Okay. We'll taking a short coffee break for 15 minutes, and we'll come back and continue with the open discussion on the important and performance benchmark of sustainability investment. If you have the questions, so please write down on the papers. See you after the break.